Hello and welcome to Parenting Today. Now, are you a parent to a Gen Z or Generation Z? This is the generation that came after the millennials that were born in between, like the mid-90s to around year 2010. They actually make up at least 33% of the population. They're the most populous in this country. And those are the people that we're going to discuss today. That's that age. And on set today is Mary Nyoike and Boniface Nyoike. Mary Nyoike and Boniface are parents to 3 kids. One is 14, a Gen Z. Another one is 9, another Gen Z. And another one is 4. That is Generation Alpha. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Which were your favorite cartoons when you were growing up?
When I grew up, Tom and Jerry was a big hit.
And you?
I was raised in up country, so I can't really put a finger on one, but I remember we used to watch these, I don't really remember watching a lot of cartoons, but I remember definitely Tom and Jerry. But some movie that used to come on a Sunday afternoon, I don't really remember the name, but not really a cartoon.
A cartoon?
Yes.
Okay, I was trying to gauge where you guys are, whether you are millennials or Generation X. Millennials or Generation Y, I think. I watched Pooh Bear. Pooh Bear was my favorite. I think it was around the same time. So we are all millennials.
Yes.
And then here we are parenting Gen Z.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yes.
When did you become parents? Let's start from there.
We became parents in 2008 because our firstborn is 14. And yes, we are continuing to be parents. We have put a pause, but you never know what happens after you put a pause. God may just decide that you continue.
That you continue with the generations.
With the generations.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how was that like? How old is your second born? How old is your third born? I think I mentioned that earlier on, but now in between the gaps, how was that like?
We just decided to give them a 5 years gap, so each and every one of them has a 5 years gap. Yeah, which I feel is awesome. At the same time, a disadvantage, but it is what it is. So
why a disadvantage?
Because I feel like I kept going back to point A after 5 years. Diapers again after 5 years. I wish I did a 2 years difference.
The gap?
Yeah.
It was just 2 years.
Nifanye haraka haraka and then I'm done. But right now, I kept going back, which I know you understand me because you're a mother.
Yes.
When you give birth to a child, it's like your life has stopped for a season of time, for like 3 years because you have a newborn, and kids are sensitive, especially now the newborns, and between age 0 and 3 before they go to school. So I felt like my life kept stopping. Yeah.
and going back
that's
to
the disadvantage I'm talking about. But on the other hand, it's an advantage because now the older one could help me take care of the younger ones. Yeah. So it's an advantage.
An advantage.
Yeah.
On the flip side.
Yes.
So the 5-year gap. Did anything ever change in your parenting? Like, once the second born was born, was there something that was a bit different from when the firstborn was born 5 years?
Yeah, I think like any parent, your firstborn is your training ground of your parenting skills. And of course, you get to see a lot of your gaps and naivety about parenting because you have all these ideas about how wrong your parents were in raising you. And you have this perfect script about how parenting is supposed to work, how my kids will never disobey or rebel and all that. And then I think with time, you begin to realize, oh, this is a whole learning curve that you have to go through. So for me, I think one of the things that the 5-year gap has given me an opportunity to do is what I would call reflective parenting. I am a deeply reflective man. I love reflecting and seeing areas where I've made mistakes. And I think one of the things parents need to understand is that you can never be a perfect parent. Trying to shoot for perfect parenting is shooting for something that is forever going to be out of your reach. So of course there are mistakes that I made with my firstborn that I am trying to correct with my second-born, and now further correcting with my third-born. So I think it allows you
to perfect with the
if there is a fourth-born, then I think we'll have mastered certain skills that will help us going forward.
Some of these skills, you want to mention some of them?
Yes. I think the first thing that I learned, and my wife keeps reminding me of this, is the temptation to want a perfect child with your firstborn can throw you on the conundrum of over-disciplining, because you are thinking, if I get it right with this one, then they'll be able to model for the others, right? So I think that's one of the areas that I learned. I think I went a little bit hard in terms of being over-assertive, trying to be over-controlling, trying to put them in this mold that they're supposed to fit in, and forgetting that they're unique and they bring their own unique humanity into this space that we are in. And also just trying to make them fit into my perfect way of thinking. This is what I think you should behave in like a child. And then you begin to realize that a child has a mind of their own. And then now you have to begin making those concessions and saying, okay, what do I need to overlook? What do I need to be firm with? And it's a whole learning curve. I don't think you ever get to a place where you master it, but I think you grow with time. And I think what really helps to grow is, especially for couples, to have conversations about, where do you think I'm doing it right? And I'm thinking, like, in this relationship, I'm the one who always goes overboard. So me ndio narudi shango. Yeah. But those moments of conversation and also just reflective parenting and realizing that the script that worked with you may not work with these kids. These kids are hyper exposed. They have privileges without responsibility. And there's a whole lot to manage in terms of the influence that is fighting for space in their minds. So you cannot assume that you're the only influence on your kids.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of the, when my son was, and maybe this is something worth mentioning, when my son was, I think, in class for the first one, one time this friend of his comes, and he comes with a flash disk. And I'm trying to imagine, by the time I saw a flash disk, I think I was in my mid-20s, This is a kid that is probably around class 3, class 4. He's come with a flash disk. I don't know what are the contents of the flash disk. I don't know who this other kid is. So you have to fight with that whole, you know, plethora of issues. And yet now you also have to make sure that you don't lose connection with your child, which I think is the biggest challenge there.
Wow.
Yes.
And
yes, yes.
looking at it, we were brought up by a different generation altogether. And then here you are, you're living in your own there's a way that our generation does things. And then now you have to bring up a child that is in a totally different generation. They're tech savvy, like you're saying, you know, you think a flash disk and you don't even know what it contains. And you don't want to also interfere. You know, someone was also talking about how nowadays parents are more approachable. Now that the Gen Zs can easily just come and approach the parents as opposed to...
And they know their rights.
And they know their rights.
If you do something beyond what you should do, they remind you.
As opposed to how we grew up, you know, like the father of the home was... Yeye ndio Simba, hakuna kumwongelesha ovyo ovyo.
Siku hizi Simba ni wengi.
Anyway, tell me about that. How was it now as a mother, you know, bringing up your firstborn first before the second?
I think my biggest challenge has been my expectations. You know, I'm expecting him to be like me. The way I grew up, I started being so responsible when I was very young. I started taking care of my sister when I was, I think, in class 3. I was already taking care of my sister. I have only one sister. And so my mom left us with our dad. So I was the one taking care of them. So expecting that my son will do the same, it keeps on disappointing me over and over again. So I have to, I got to a point now, I don't want to compare anymore so that I don't keep getting disappointed, because I find it is really irritating. Na inanifanya nasikia tu, I'm not at peace with him like all the time. Because of now what I expect of him. And I keep on reminding myself now, this is Jeremy and you're Mary, and from a different generation.
Exactly. All right. So what are some of those things that you've noticed that probably they're not wrong, like they're not doing them wrongly, but they bother you as a parent, and you're thinking, gosh, I have to either adjust or get caught up by time.
Yes. I think the one thing that I've seen that is a huge challenge with parenting these kids is their level of exposure. And sometimes you underestimate what they know. So you may think you're telling them something new, kumbe they learned about it about 3 years, 4 years ago. I mean, when you think about something like as simple as the sexuality of a child. I mean, these kids are getting to know about these things when they are in their 7 years, 8 years. They know so much. And again, the media exposure is not helping because you see, we grew up in this bubble where your parents could control what you're watching on TV. You remember when we grew up, I don't know whether it was the same for you, but we didn't even have remote controls. It was those TVs where you used to turn a knob.
And there was a whole kabati
Yes,
that had
there
a
was a
padlock.
kabati that
You
had
know?
a padlock,
Had a padlock.
and the key was restricted. I mean, not everybody could access
Like
it.
TV screen
Yes.
time was very limited.
Now you're dealing with a kid that is exposed to a smartphone, and they have not grown up with any sort of control where you can impose a certain restriction on them. So as we grow and as we raise these kids, you actually realize that the parameters of control are becoming blurred every other day. You know, you used to think you have this much control. You actually realize you have lesser control than you know. So what I resorted to actually doing is, as opposed to trying to create control, now I realize I have to shift and start doing what I call parenting the conscience. So that now you try to instill a certain value system without now necessarily trying to control the freedom. Because I've realized with these kids, the more you try to control freedom, the more they show you don't have as much control as you have. You know, I mean, to the extent that sometimes when I have a problem with my smartphone, my kid will be the one coming to sort it out. And I'm the owner of the smartphone, and I don't know.
And they know much
They
more
know
than
much
you
more
do.
than you. So I think you
And
have
it's
to...
your phone.
And it's your phone. You spend the most time with it, and they know more
You
about that
bought
phone than
it
you.
with your
Yeah.
money,
In
you
fact,
know.
we were just watching the World Cup recently with my wife and our kids, and we were realizing this kid, we've never watched football in our house. They know almost all the players, and we are thinking they are schooling us into something that, you know, we have, you know, been exposed to before. So I think you get to realize that their exposure is beyond what you know. Yeah. When you think that you're trying to take them to church to sing gospel songs, wameshasikiliza kuna na wewe uko huko unajaribu, you know. So I think you've got to get to a place where you focus more on conscience and trying to instill a certain sense of values, and also being aware that you may not be able to like regulate what they do all the time. And just give them that space to also make decisions as you parent them, but you realize you're instilling conscience is the most important thing. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So as a mother, I'm assuming you know mothers spend the most time with them. What are some of the challenges that you faced with your Gen Zs? We'll talk about the alpha later. With your two Gen Zs.
Like every time I say something, the next thing that follows is a why.
Why? Yeah.
That really irritates me a lot because by the time I'm telling you, get that glass to the kitchen. Mom, I'm doing this. Let me finish this, and then no, take it now. Why, Mom? I'll still, you know, that the why really irritates me a lot. So I have to keep working on myself because I've realized that I think this is something that is not about to change. Yeah, because we have talked about it, but it's not changing. So you get to a point where now you accept it and you start telling God, now work on me to know how to, and give me wisdom.
You should
to
know
be
how
able
many
to
of those
know-
prayers I've made.
Exactly. To give me wisdom to just know how to deal with them in a way that will not bring conflict in the house. Because you realize that most of the time, we are fighting, we are in a conflict, and that is not what you want as a mother, especially for me, because most of the time I'm a stay at home. That is my main job. Of course I work from home, but my most of my time is parenting. So you don't want to be in a house where there's no peace. You know, and again, you know, you cannot impact somebody that you're not at peace with. You know, so I think the why has really imeniletea mashida mengi, but I'm working on myself to be able to know how to go about it so that it doesn't bring conflict in the house.
And you know it can really bother you because when we were growing up, that was it. Like a no is a no.
Yes.
Right now, nimekuambia upeleke hiyo kikombe
Not
jikoni. You know,
debate.
it's now. You're not negotiating. We're not negotiating about it.
Can I go and play PS at Akina Sijui who's? No, you can't go. Why, Mom?
Why?
I've already done my homework.
I have the same problem with my daughter. She's 5. I'm raising a generation alpha. You know, she tells me her friends play all day. And she tells me, why do they play till 7 p.m. and I have to come back and sleep in the afternoon? So I tell her, this is our home. That is their home. That is what their parents have decided for them, and this is what we've decided for you. But she still doesn't get it. Like, so why can't you be like their parents?
Actually, the other day my sons were telling me, why can't we be like Akina so and so? Yani they have a PS, they have a computer that they have to keep on playing games. You know, why can't we just be like them? So
Just
you
hold
don't know
it there.
what to say, you know.
We're going to take a short break. We're still talking about Generation Z, and later on we'll touch on Gen Alpha. You want to know what these other kids have in store for us. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching Parenting Today, and we're discussing Gen Z, Generation Z. This is the generation that came after the millennials, Generation Y, the millennials that we are. What are some of the things that you've noticed in your firstborn, the Generation Zs that up to date, like you still don't know how to handle?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is huge, especially with Gen Zs, is the tendency to focus on consumption without reflection. And by consumption, I mean they are on media, they'll go to TikTok, they'll not reflect what is the impact of what I'm consuming. They will just consume it wholesale. And by the time, and that's why, again, it's very important to be in touch with what your kids are doing on the phone. In as much as you may not be able to control everything, you need to create a monitoring mechanism. Where, in fact, I think my wife was telling me the other day, you go to your, is that called the recycle bin of your phone or something like that? Just check what they've deleted and just get to know what they're doing. And when you get to know it, I think there's another thing I've realized as parents we tend to do. Try not to overreact, because you will meet with things there that will shock you. I mean, things that you got to know when you're in your 20s, you'll get to realize these kids are knowing them when they are under 10, you know? I was talking to a parent recently, a friend of mine, just discussing about the challenges of parenting today. And he was telling me the kids were in a certain virtual class. And as the virtual class is going on, the connectivity is hacked and porn is posted there. And these are kids that are below 10 years old. And he was overreacting now, blaming the school, saying my kid will not go for virtual classes again. And I was telling him, you know, and I'm in the same space where I'm tempted. You know, you feel your blood boiling, yeah? You feel like this needs instant justice. But you realize that's the world they're living in, yeah? So I think what you also want to do is to encourage that culture of, I mean, you cannot stop consumption. What you want to encourage is reflection. That as you consume these things, ask yourself, what are they doing to you as a human being? You know, as you're consuming kuna and all those kinds of things, you know, what are they doing to your value system as a human being? What are they training you to do? And I've realized that I think this is the generation of parents that has to learn patience the most.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other generation that has ever been tested on patience like this one. And now when you come to Generation Alphas, it's even worse, you know. They push your buttons to the limit. So I think that's one huge thing that I've seen, that you may not control, especially media intake, but you've got to encourage a culture of reflection, where, again, you instill certain values and you encourage them to reflect based on those values. Again, not an easy thing to do. Because again, they're growing up. You know, when we were growing up, there was a social support system to reinforce values that you were learning, you know. There was a neighbor that could come, akipata, you're doing something you're not supposed to do. They had the blessing of your parent to actually engage. But nowadays, you find a kid doing something, even where ukipata mtoto wako ameguzwa, the first thing is you don't even know the motive of that. You jump into, you know, who gave you permission to talk to my kid like that? We go to schools
and question teachers.
I mean, a teacher raises an issue, and the first thing you don't talk about your kid, you say, this teacher is wrong.
You should have spoken to me.
You should have talked to me first, you know. You have no right to you know, discipline and what have you. So I think one of the things that I've also had to learn as a parent is just to be slow, and I am the kind that overreacts very quickly. I mean, in fact, I think my wife she has stopped me from going to jail many times. Because you find, especially the temptation when you know the value of learning responsibility early, and you see that irresponsibility. And again, these are kids that are growing up in a culture that is globalized. So you're not the only influence system on them. They are learning irresponsibility from quarters you don't even know. So the temptation again is to overreact and overexert control. And I've learned that doesn't work. And I have a lot of unlearning to do so that I can build relationship and not lose a child in the name of trying to raise them to be a certain kind of a learner.
We clearly need a lot of
Yeah.
patience.
A lot of patience.
Now, in this generation that is tech addicted,
Yes.
so to speak, what are some of those values that you grew up with that you've been able to just pull and try and inculcate into their kind of generation, and you think they've worked for your children?
Yeah, I think like for me, I grew up listening to gospel music. So I think in my house, not that I think, I know, in my house, we don't listen to any other music. So when I hear them sing another different song that is not gospel, I know that they have not heard it from our house. So that is one thing that I have seen work, because like now the small one, another day I had her sing hiyo wimbo ya kuna
Oh, yeah.
niliwaita wote, where did Jewel learn that song from, you know, because they all know. They were actually telling her, you see wimbo mzuri, because they know that in our house we don't listen to that kind of music. Yeah, so I have seen it work. Even if they go to a birthday party and there's some other music playing there, they're always telling them, we don't have gospel music. So I've seen it work for us. Yeah, because we have instilled that from day one.
From day one.
Yeah, from day one.
And it has worked.
Yeah, it has worked.
Yeah, so language barrier. We've seen that language is quite different compared to us. There's the Gengeton generation. How has that knocked on your door? Is it in your home?
Well, not necessarily directly, but I'm very conscious that, you know, kids can act out, and they know which scripts to play out so that you don't have any suspicions. So recently I was having a conversation with my son as we were going home. In fact, yesterday when we were going home from church, and just engaging him on, you know, like, what do you think about some of these languages that teenagers are talking? And of course, he acts out and say, I don't talk about those things. But somehow, I know consciously, I would be naive to think that he's interacting with other teenagers and not picking that. So I think, and it's something that you see with every generation. Every generation has a language that is unique to them, that decodes their culture and their way of life. So I think also what you want to do, and it's something that I'm learning, is to learn to thrust yourself in that space. One of the things that I've done very intentionally, in fact, and I don't know whether even my wife noticed that I started doing this, when I realized that my son turned into a teen, I started doing high school forums. And I'm putting myself in those spaces deliberately so that I can pick language and culture that I know my son may come home and act out and want to impress me, but at least I'm aware of what is happening with that generation. And that has really helped me to become consciously conversant with some of the trends and some of the things. In fact, I was telling her about something they're doing nowadays called gaping, you know? The way we used to do, well, it's a new trend with this generation. In fact, I learned about that one time I went to Braeburn School to do a forum. I was trying to push for a forum. And I was being told about how those kids, as young as 8 going on to, you know, their teens, they go to the toilet and now, you know, the way we used to hide and probably hiding with a cigarette. Gaping is a form of like an electronic kind of a cigarette. It's a sophisticated form of shisha, but it's what is very popular with them nowadays. So I got to learn that by exposing myself to these environments where I interact with these kids, and I just encourage them to ask me questions that they wouldn't ask their parents. So when I hear those questions, I know those are questions my son is asking, but he would not necessarily ask me. So one of the things that has worked for me also is putting myself in those spaces where, and of course they're very uncomfortable, because these kids will ask you questions that you never imagined asking your parent. You wouldn't even have the boldness to even start that conversation, right? And I mean, for example, I went to a young guys forum. These are guys who are 14, they just finished class 8. And those kids were asking me, so what is wrong with watching pornography? And you're thinking, wow, I mean, this is not something you would even
It's wrong already.
So
what,
for them,
it's
not wrong. So what is wrong with it, you know? So, and you know, again, the tendency is to overreact and think they have not been exposed. But the truth of the matter is they are more exposed than we know. And we have to be willing to calm down and engage and interact and try to bring a value system that will affect their conscience.
Exactly.
And how is the hardest thing to do?
That's the hardest thing,
just to calm down.
to calm down
When
is
a question
not
like
easy.
that comes,
Comes.
oh my God.
Yes,
And that's
yes,
actually
yes.
my next question. What kind
Yes.
of environment have you created in your home that has allowed your kids to maybe come to you and because it's a generation that also wants to
Yes.
keep to itself.
Yes.
Like they don't want
Yes.
to, hey, I don't want to
Yes.
discuss that with mom or dad, or I'd rather discuss it with someone else.
Yes.
So what has made it easy for you to just give them space to come and talk it out?
I think what I've done, for me, I'm very open. I can talk to them about anything and everything. You know, I never shy off, by the way. Mbaka, there's a day, my older son came and told me, Mom, by the way, I'm attracted to a girl. What am I going to do? Just imagine, you know, when he asked me that question, I realized, by the way, that's a good thing. It means that we are
like,
close, you
yes,
know.
that he
That is
trusts
why
you.
that is why he has a
It didn't shock you,
confidence.
kidogo?
No, it
Okay.
didn't. It is. It's natural.
Yeah.
You know, when I was his age,
Yeah.
hata mimi nilikuwa in the same, you know.
So
in
one
the
of the
same
steps
place.
is just to be
So,
calm
yeah,
and-
just to
and
be
just
calm.
know that-
I normally, I'm one open person. I will talk to them about anything when they ask a question. For me, I never react or overreact like kupiga nduru hapana. I am very, I check myself. So when they ask a question, sometimes hata nikistuka, I'll not show them that I'm shocked. I'll just put myself together and then answer. So for me, I've found it very easy to interact with them because they can tell me anything. Because I normally tell them everything.
Everything.
Yes,
And-
I'm
and-
very open with
and
them.
it works.
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the 4-year-old. I have a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's very inquisitive.
Yes.
At this stage, we are at that stage where she's asking for definitions
Yes, yes, yes.
of
yes, yes.
just terms. Like,
Yeah.
what is, you know, she can ask you something like what? You know, like even a term like, or she can use it, maybe say, oh, it's behind the door. And then she'll come, what is behind mommy by the, and she's the one who's used it's behind. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is behind? She
Yeah.
actually wants like a definition.
Yes, yes.
So sometimes I'm like, I'm tongue-tied. I don't even know how to. So do I
Yeah.
start defining behind?
Yeah.
But you've just used it. So,
Yes.
but she's asking why she's used the word behind.
Yeah.
You know, so explain to me what it means. So are you experiencing the same with your
Yeah.
4-year-old?
Yeah, I think kids nowadays, again, like we're saying, the one biggest challenge with parenting today is overexposure. These kids are so exposed, they know so much, but what they lack, in fact, what this generation lacks, and you're talking about both alphas and Gen Z, they don't lack information. What they lack is perspective. So what you try to do is to bring a perspective that gives a context to the conversation. And one of the things that I've realized, especially about these kids, that you can no longer, for example, run away with, is lack of authenticity. You've got to learn to be as authentic as early as you can. One time we were living somewhere, and you wouldn't believe this, and it's amazing how naive as parents we can be. And I think there were 4-year-olds just behind our house, a boy and a girl, they were making out.
No.
And we are thinking, okay, these are things we were thinking about when we were probably in our late teens. These are 4-year-olds,
Yeah.
right? So you cannot underestimate that capacity of knowledge that they have. So what you want to do is, in a calm way, try to give context and perspective to that. And again, that has got to be done on the platform of a lot of authenticity, right? Again, like I think what she's saying is so key, which is something I'm learning, and it's very difficult for me. I think for her, personality works. You know, sanguines are, they are more freelance
Yeah.
as opposed to trying to control. For me, I'm the opposite side. I'm a choleric. And a choleric wants, you know, this is what I
Done
say
my
you
way.
do. Yeah?
Yes.
And you don't start
done
negotiating
now.
with me. And I'm beginning to realize that that doesn't work. Yeah, you've got to be very open to negotiating. You've got to be very open to conversation, and you've got to be willing to be authentic. Not try to prove like, you know, or try to create a scenario that makes it look like that's not a discussion for now. And that's not easy, because there's a certain psychological elasticity you need to have conversations our parents never had with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I like
yes,
it.
yes.
Let's leave it at that. Psychological elasticity.
Yes.
We're taking a short break, but when we come back, we're going to have Edith Sakwa. Edith is a counseling psychologist.
Yes.
We need to understand how to handle Gen Zs
Yes.
after this break. Welcome back. You're watching Parenting Today. On this episode, we're talking about Generation Z, Gen Z, that's what we call them. And on set is Mr. Boniface Nyoike and Mary Nyoike, a couple that is raising 3 kids, 2 Gen Zs and 1 Gen Alpha. We are going to learn more about that from our counseling psychologist, Edith Sakwa, who has just joined us. Edith, should I apologize to my child when I'm wrong?
Okay, so based on what the parents have been talking, I just want to pick from there.
Yes.
I would say it's important to apologize when you're wrong, because one thing that parents assume that they're always right. But again, remember that when you look at home, home is the setup where children learn values. So if you really want your child to learn the value of respect, value of asking for forgiveness, then you have to show it, you model. So the issue is not every time they do something, you're the one running to apologize. No, you need to set your standard as a parent. But again, you're showing these children, even me as a parent, I can be wrong. And it becomes easier for the child to also apologize to other children and even to the parents. Yes.
I asked that because this Gen Z,
Yes.
This Generation Z is a generation that expects that. I think they're very open with their parents.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, like in your profession and, parents, I'm sure so many parents have come to you
Yes.
for direction, like how do we handle these kids? So what are some of the cases that, or rather challenges that you've been receiving about Generation Z?
Okay, maybe before I talk about the challenges, it's good to draw the picture. Who are these people?
Yes.
Because when we understand exactly who they are, we'll know how to come in and support them. So this is a unique group, a unique population, and you find that as now the Generation Y, we are in a different group. Our life was quite different. These are digital children. We say they were born with smartphones and tablets in their arm. So that is the world. This is a child who has a lot of information. This is a child who wants immediate gratification. They're very creative. They think of jobs that don't even exist. So for you as a parent, you want to talk to your child about being a doctor, being a teacher, being a nurse. To them, they're thinking of jobs that you've never had. They're not here, but those jobs will come. Who knew that one day people will be making money through content creation? But then they have those ideas that we don't know. So that is a very special group that as parents, it is very important to bring ourselves to that level of trying to understand where they're coming from. I've seen many parents come and say they have an issue with screen time with their children. So they try to hide all the gadgets in the house. You'll do that as a parent. But remember, the child will still access through other means, through the neighbors. Would you go around telling all the neighbors, please, in my house, I don't want to use this. So you also have to keep it. So the most important thing is, first as a parent, because I think most parents are sharing challenges that children are facing. But now when you look back, or I want to bring a different shift to this parenting thing, especially concerning this special group, is number one, yes, you are a parent, you want to parent a child. Who are you first as a parent? Have you parented yourself? Because we are coming with many unfinished things. And when you ask a parent, why do you think it's wrong to apologize? Even the reaction, it can tell you that it is coming from a certain level, from emotional pains that are, so it is eliciting some form of emotions. It's not just sitaki kusema pole, it is coming from a certain place of discomfort, a certain place of pain. So for me, I would say this, yes, this is a unique group, but one thing you can do to even understand them is first to look at yourself. You as a parent, are you able to raise a child if you cannot raise yourself? Can you grow a child if you've not grown? Because we are two different things. There is Edith, the adult, and there is Edith, the inner child. Where is my inner child? Maybe growing up, I went through so much trauma with my parents, and I got stuck at 8 years. So the person who will be pulling me behind in terms of parenting is my 8-year-old inner child. But I want my child to be I'm taking my child on another track as an adult Edith. So yes, understand where you are. Most of the time, our strategies or our approaches are coming from our fears as parents. For example, I have a daughter in boarding school. I struggled allowing her to go to boarding because of the experience I had, you see. But I came to understand that it is not about the school. It is about my brokenness, what I went through growing up as a child. So what are your fears? Those are things you need to ask yourself. What are your desires? If I wanted to be a doctor, should I fulfill that desire through my child? If I have needs that were never met by my parents, do I want to meet my needs? Because maybe, for example, if you had a child in your house and then there are visitors, then you say, come say hi to the visitors, smile to the visitors. You see, that is for you, you think, it is a good thing, yes, to be open, you're welcoming.
Yes, to
but
have those social graces.
To have those, yes. But why enforce them when the visitors are there? If she does that when the visitors are not there, is it okay for you? Because when you tell them when the visitors are there, it means there is a image.
Pretense, yes.
Yes, there's an image you also want to show to the visitors, and it is coming from a certain unfinished business. So I think it is very important to just ask yourself, who am I first? Pick yourself up, conscious, and actually parenting is a conscious process, not an event. Conscious meaning you're mindful of every step, everything you do. It is not a set of strategies, because what works for me cannot work for the couple. The children are different. They're in the different background. They were brought up in different background. I came from a different background. My children are different. They have different personalities. So you can't use just a set of strategies and say they're going to work. It is a process that is conscious. Then it is also relational.
Yes.
So also ensure that you create a relationship from uko chini. What I've seen many parents do is they realize they don't have relationship when the children are teenagers. And that's when you want to force your children to, ukiwa na shida, come and tell me, I am there for you, nini. But do you know how this child has grown to that level?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are 3 levels that I want to encourage parents who are listening, that if you've missed something at a certain age, don't be desperate. Don't feel like you're a failure. You see? So there is 0 to 6 years. Those are formative years. Very important. Those are the years where the values are instilled. But again, if you've missed that stage, there is the 7 to 12. Yeah? From 7 to 12, there is 13 to 23. So as much as parenting is a lifelong journey, the 23 years in the life of that child, very important. Because after 23 years, there's nothing you're going to impart in that child. You've done your part. Okay.
Maybe very quickly,
Yes.
what should you rather do as a parent? Like we were talking about how our parents used to lock up the televisions, there's nowhere to hide the gadgets, as you were saying, you're there, you're hiding all the gadgets in the house, and yet they'll still access that information in one way or another. Like you're saying, the guests are here, that's when you're telling them, okay, make sure you put up a face, this face, and yet they haven't been doing that. So what should you instill in them before, or rather, how do you go about it, so that these are values that they have on a day-to-day basis, in a way that, like she was saying, if they go to a neighbor's house and they're playing the kind of music that they don't play in their home, then they would be in a position to just say, no, I don't listen to that kind of music, instead of just going along with what is there. So how do you instill those values to a point where wherever they go, they can still have them and not run away from what you've instilled in them?
So instilling the values, remember, these children are a product of mom and dad. Of course, in parenting, doesn't have to be your biological children, but I'm looking at those children, your children, that you've given birth to. So before this child comes, there is the mom and dad, yani the father, the husband and the wife. You coming with your own values, you see. he is coming with his own values. So when you come together, you need to be very clear on what you set your standards, like even before those children. Because even the couples themselves, kuna hiyo conflict. This is what I want, this is what my husband wants. Then when the children come, utapush gani? You know, you can only push what you believe in as a parent. So first, the preparation, adequate preparation even before the children. Talk about it. Yeah, we prepare for so many things. We prepare for so many things, but for parenting, most of us as couples, we don't take time to even think through what kind of children do you want? What are the values? Because there are so many other values that will come in place, but what are these key that would want to be very intentional on them? Okay? So that when dad says this, mom should also be saying the same thing. So mom should not say, you don't listen to secular music, but dad has no problem. Or dad wants to go to church, mom ni chama. You see? So
You have to
can
speak
you
in one
agree?
language, yeah.
And that is adequate preparation before. Number two, effective decision. Have reflective decisions. Think through the decisions that you're making concerning these children. Do you have monitoring, like in a company, there are tools to monitor and evaluate. So what are you agreeing that these are going to be our strategies to evaluate, to keep on reminding them, so that when they're out of our space, we are sure the children are safe.
Yes.
They can stand and say, kwetu, we don't listen to that music. And if you don't want to change me, I'm going home. You see, because it's not because mommy will get me listening, it's because it is wrong. So what I'm saying is that first, you as a couple, plan ahead. What are the things that you don't want to instill in these children? Then when the children come, you be patient with the children. Because for you as a parent, remember there are things that you've struggled learning. Yeah? Even to do with communication, we are still struggling with our own couples. But you expect your child that because you've taught them to communicate well, anze tu. You see? So you just keep on encouraging them. But the best way to instill a value is to do it yourself. They learn better when they see in the natural setup.
Yes.
Yes.
The last one, that we're going to do it so fast so that we get to their questions.
Okay.
How can parents in maybe in the millennial generation now adjust to raising Gen Zs?
So now the parents,
either Generation X or Generation Y, who have millennials. If you're talking to a parent out there and they have a Gen Z and they just don't know how to go about it, to parent them, what are some of the adjustments that they need to make in their lives to be able to handle them?
Okay. The first thing is to allow yourself to learn, because if you're not ready to learn, you're not ready to parent. So just accept that there's some gaps. There are things that I don't understand as a parent. You can't be like know it all. So willing to learn. Number two, you also need to be adaptive. Like, these are the strategies I've been using to bring up my children. Like, if you have different generation, maybe the first generation, it worked. But now there's a different generation in the house. Are you flexible enough to adapt to different approaches?
Yes.
So that you don't say, kwetu, this is how we've been doing it for the past 5 years. So you can't change because that worked for you. So be flexible enough. Another thing is, which I'll still emphasize, is self-awareness. Self-awareness is just concentrate on working on yourself. Work on yourself, love yourself, be there for yourself, so that you cannot give from an empty self. And when you are aware of where you are as a person, you'll process those unfinished things. Because most of the time we are imposing things to our children because of our own brokenness. Yes. So that will be very important. First, to work on yourself. Yes, and then focus on the children.
Wow. I think that's like my biggest takeout. And now to you, Mr. Boniface and Mary, if you have any questions for the counseling psychologist, you go ahead and ask them.
I have this question that is burning. As a parent, how do you balance between your child's passion and maybe the education? Because like for me, my son is extremely passionate about drums, and sometimes it's very irritating because Instead of doing his homework, he's playing drums. He's listening to music. Of course, it's the right kind of music. It's gospel music, but sometimes I feel he takes it overboard. He needs balance. And when I try to explain to him the need of balance, the need of to just focus on his studies for now, it seems like it's not getting into him. It's the passion is just too much. So how do you balance? How do you like get as a parent get to a place where you understand your child? How do you handle them?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the aspect of balancing that you're talking about, because everything, whatever, even church issues, if done in extreme, it's still harmful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing I would want to really affirm your child for even identifying a passion at that age.
Yeah.
Yes, that they know this is what I love doing, and they do it, like whether mom is hard on him or what, he still wants to do that. So that means there is something in him. So you see, if he was not just doing it for the sake of doing it, or he's seen another child, he will give up because you're pushing him, he'll give up. But if he keeps on doing it, that is a passion he has. So one thing is to provide platforms that he can nurture that talent. But again, you also let the child understand that other than this, there are other important things in life that needs to be given.
True.
Yes, because for you to grow this talent, you're giving it time. You know, even if I am talented in singing, if I don't sing, it will not grow. So the way you're giving it time, you also need to give time to education and let the child understand why education is important. And as we've talked about this generation, they're very creative, and most of them, they don't even see the need of education because they know they can use their talents and become what they want in life. Yeah. So, and they're watching, they have seen people. The other day, my son was telling me, you know, he's a footballer.
Yeah.
He's a dropout. So he's relating with people that didn't even, but they have succeeded in their career. So you give them different perspectives. Yes, maybe they dropped in school, but you don't know under what circumstance that has made them to prosper or become who they have become, you see. So let them understand, but again, also you can set limits. That yes, between Monday and maybe Friday, you have to focus on your studies. If you want time to go for practice on Saturday in church, you need to set like a limit.
Yeah.
Let the behaviors that you desire to see in this child be clear to you. Then also set the consequences. Because if from Monday to Friday, it's not viable, you just want to play drums, what are the consequences? Yeah. So don't just say these are the consequences and you don't follow through the consequences. If they really love they have that passion, they'll do what is supposed to be done so that they get time to go for practice. Yeah, it's about balancing.
I think I have a question that aligns to something close to what she's mentioned, but maybe from a mental point of view.
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen the prevalence of issues of mental wellness in teenagers, and it seems like we are raising a generation that is the most emotionally fragile.
True.
So how do you, and with issues like cyberbullying and the media engagement, a child needs a certain emotional strength to survive that kind of pressure. So what are some of the things you would suggest that a parent can help to help their child to build a certain emotional tenacity to survive bullying, to survive cyberbullying, and all these kinds of emotional pressures?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, because you find that mental health issues are on the rise with that age. And it's because of their overexposure to the media. And you see them being too much in the media, it even prevents them from learning social skills. Because now they're able to engage online, but if they get their friends, they're not able to like engage. They have no social skills. And you know, social skills are very important, because it is the skills that are going to help you know that I need to be assertive. I need to make a decision not to engage this stranger. I need to be open with my mom or my dad and tell there's someone that has sent me a friend request, or he's asked me to send a photo. And there's so, other than the cyberbullying, there's so many forms of offenses that are happening on the social platform. You find some children are being, like they're told to send their photos, and then they use the photos now kuambia tell your parents, you what. Yeah? So the children are giving a lot of information because of the fear. So maybe it is very important for us to ensure that you teach social skills. Social skills are very important because they'll not get the skills from the media. Okay? And then let them understand what is mental health. Because not even the children alone, even most of adults are struggling with mental health issues, and they can't tell the difference. We normalize mental health challenges and say it is normal to behave like this. It is normal for daddy to tell mommy like this. Kumbe it is an abuse that is going to cause a mental health issue. So sensitize the children on what mental health is, so that when they have some symptoms, you're able to support them. And another thing about mental health is if you as a parent understand the impact of mental health on the child, don't shy away and feel if I seek help, I look like a failure as a parent. Because many parents, you know the way parents used to hide children born with disability, nowadays we hide our children who have mental health issues. So if you let them understand that this is an issue that can be sorted, we can do it as parents, we can talk, they'll be able to bring it up as early as possible. Yes.
Well, thank you so much. That was very insightful. Thank you so much for sharing that. You've pointed the arrow to us as parents, like back to us. The responsibility lies with us, and we need to work on us to be able to raise Generation Z, Gen Z, and others are coming up, Gen Alpha. We'll talk about them some other time. This has been Parenting Today. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Rebecca Miruri Mulure.
Welcome to Tile and Carpet, where we deal with everything you would need at home, in the office, restaurant, and hotels. We offer solutions to all your needs. We have a wide range of roofing solutions, tiles, sanitary furnishing, and interiors. We have exquisite furniture, elaborate dining sets, and classic comfy beds. Our prices are affordable across board. Feel free to visit us in any of our different branches in Mombasa, Kisumu, and Nairobi. We also do site visits and offer clients with professional advice. You can reach us on this number for the site visit.